Truck 1, ambulance 1, medic 1, showing all units en route to
Dispatch ambulance 7, St. Mary's code 3 with 1.
Going Interior, a podcast about doing hard jobs and living life well. This podcast is designed as a collaborative tool so we can learn from one another and share ideas on finding joy and meaning in our work. Today, I'm your guest host, Bryson Rasmussen, Captain Paramedic and Peer Support Team Member at the Grand Junction Fire Department. My guest today is Jamie Kavanaugh, the regular host of this podcast. Jamie's been with the fire department for 10 years. Before that, the previous 10 years, he's put in time as a flight medic, ambulance supervisor, ski patroller, and volunteer firefighter. He is a loving husband and father of a 7-year-old daughter, and a lot of his hobbies include the outdoors, including backcountry skiing, mountain biking, and meditating. Jamie, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for doing this, Bryce.
Thanks for letting me host. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Great to have you.
So we're just going to dive right in. What are you doing on the other side of the microphone today?
So I'm a captain, but I also like to be able to do whatever I ask of my folks. So whether that be working the ambulance or cleaning the commode, I feel like I should be able to do that responsibility sometimes. Not that I'm going to spend all my time cleaning commodes anymore, but I do want to be able to do that and see what this feeling is like over here.
All right. So if you're going to ask people to open up about themselves, you want to be able to do it too.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate that. Jamie, what is your current job?
Right now I'm a training captain, so I oversee the fire academies mostly. We've had a lot of fire academies. We're hiring a bunch of folks out at the Grand Junction Fire Department. We had a tax initiative passed a few years ago, and we keep on hiring, keep on building stations. So I get the joy of overseeing that initial training.
Okay. Mostly over the academy. Do you go back online when the academies are not in session?
I do go back online eventually.
All right.
Once we're done. I'm trying to work a few shifts here and there just to stay current. I love working out in the field as well, so I'll be back in July. Sorry, buddy.
We'll be happy to have you back. What set you on the path to your current position as a training captain for the Grand Junction Fire Department?
You talked about my background a little bit. I started out initially, my first real job after college was wilderness therapy program. So I took groups of juvenile delinquents on backpacking trips. So we were out there in the woods. I was out there for a week at a time, and the kids were out there for up to 6 months at a time. So I took this wilderness first responder class, which was actually a great medical class.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
It was cool. So you're, at night building traction splints out in the wilderness with sticks and stuff like that. So it's a cool class. Really made me interested in medicine. But that was my first introduction to this therapeutic side as well. And so these kids, each one was in the juvenile justice system. And each one also had a component of some trauma in their past. So it wasn't probably you and I that were ending up in juvie. It was these kids that had a challenging upbringing that led them to that circumstance. So got to work with them there. That was pretty interesting. And then from there, it was also a challenging schedule, especially to be away for a week at a time and try to maintain a relationship and that sort of thing. It's also just a really challenging job. I mean, we would sit awake at night, like figuring out how to manage this group and stuff. Snowstorms coming through. I can remember a lot of times where I was wondering what the heck we're doing. 10 kids out in the wilderness. It's 20 below in Colorado in the mountains sometimes, and the wind is howling. And there's times where it's awesome, it's amazing, and there's definitely times where a different job seemed appealing. So
yeah, sure. It's all fun and games till day 5.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I ski patrolled after that, and that one half the day you're out on the mountain doing the thing. Half the day I was sitting at the top of a chairlift and kind of hanging out. And so I figured I probably should keep studying something. So it ended up being medicine. I got an EMT and then just went to paramedic school because I had some time on my hands.
Why not, right?
Yeah, why not? So did that. Did flight paramedic for a while. Worked on the ambulance in the Front Range. Was a flight paramedic for a few years. And then The fire department's just such an amazing job. That was always appealing. I had volunteered for a time while I was ski patrolling and working on the ambulance. I think a lot of people will understand that time in your lives, either going through paramedic school or at some point this job lends itself to, oh yeah, you have all these days off, you can work other jobs, right? So I was working all these other jobs, going to school at the same time. So I volunteered for the fire department as well. So I had a bit extra time, and then this fire department just was a great fit at the right time in my life. So happy to, at this point in my career, kind of share some of the experiences with some of the newer folks.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear some of those experiences. Are you able and willing to share some of those with us?
I guess starting out, the ambulance service was quite different when I started. So 2003, I can remember maybe my first call. I was with just a first responder as a driver. I'm a brand new EMT, and we're going on an asthma attack, and we're 45 minutes from the hospital. So it really was this feeling of, okay, you really need to know what you're doing. You know, there's no easy help button here. There's no paramedic coming.
Yeah.
You might drive through a couple counties, so you could rendezvous with other ambulances. You could call a helicopter if you needed to, but all that stuff takes a bunch of time. So It really was up to you. So that sunk in and probably led me to want to learn more and more. There's a few calls that kind of mark some times in my life, I guess, and were kind of sentinel calls. So one, when I first started volunteer firefighting, this is 2007. I had been through one day of SCBA training, and shortly thereafter we get a call for a fire at a hydroelectric plant. So I lived right next to the firehouse. So I drove over and actually took one of the rescue trucks, because I wasn't even allowed to drive the fire truck yet. So I took one of the rescue trucks. I'd been running incident
by yourself?
By myself.
Jeez.
I had been running incident command. Going by yourself was not unusual. I had been working a job where I was the supervisor of the ambulance service, so I'd been doing incident command and that sort of thing. That wasn't abnormal. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll go set up the scene. They'll get the truck there, that kind of thing. But I get there, and the fire was actually inside a tunnel. So it's called a penstock. This is where the water goes from one side of a hydroelectric plant to another. So a water accelerator tunnel. And people were inside seal coating this tunnel. So 5 people had run out when a fire started, and 5 people had run deeper into the mountainside, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm there solo. They have radio comms with the people who are still inside, and they're alive. And as you can imagine, freaked out, not happy.
Yeah.
I had an air pack, but as you can imagine, there's really nothing you can do as one person on that scene. So try to set it up as best I can. The chief potentially could have been, he was coming from probably the next town over, so waiting for him to take command. At that point, being an incident command of this thing didn't seem as cool as it did about 10 minutes previously. So really, out of the box for what we were prepared for. There's no pre-plan for that. I mean, usually that space is occupied by water. It wasn't something we had pre-planned. We didn't even know people would be in there. So eventually he got there, and we had a team of us, 4 of us, went in with one of the workers. They were driving a side-by-side in and out of the thing to shuttle materials. So it was a large enough tunnel, so probably 15 feet diameter for this side-by-side, just to sit in the middle and drive back and forth. So one of the workers backs us in to where the smoke started, which was probably, in retrospect, a few hundred feet in. And we hit this smoke. He runs out, turns off the side-by-side, and we get off the back, kind of assemble our tools. We have 30-minute air packs. We take a couple steps off the back, and it is instantly completely blackout all the way down to the floor.
Yeah.
We have no voice contact with the people who are inside. It's not a good scene.
Okay, so you're in this tunnel. You got a 30-minute bottle, couple volunteers. At this point, everyone trapped knows you're coming, but doesn't know how long it's going to take or if they're going to be able to get out at this point.
Absolutely. So we get off the back of this four-wheeler, take a few steps. It's completely black to the floor. And at that point, we recalibrate. We have no idea how deep in these guys are, what's ahead of us. We have nothing other than a water can. We have no line with us if there is a fire in between us and them, because we're several hundred feet in already. So we got to turn back. I mean, there's no good option. And one of the guys had actually made a few steps further into the thing, so it was a moment of, wow, he was literally separated from the team for a second. So we gather him back up, get on the four-wheeler, go to start it, and it actually wouldn't start initially, which got our heart rates racing a little more. The guy who backed it in left it in reverse, so it wouldn't start. So eventually we figured out, put it in neutral, and we drive this thing out of there. But while driving, I'm driving, and my friend beside me is pointing these two high-powered flashlights down to the ground, and we can't see anything. So it's driving by braille. We drive up on one side, drive back into the middle, drive up onto the other side, back into the middle.
Oh my gosh.
So eventually we see the light at the end of the tunnel, literally, and are able to make our way out of there. The call clearly didn't end at that point. Those people are in there now. We have engineers showing up. We came to find out what had happened. They have turbines inside the tunnel, and they had turned them the other direction while we were in there. So initially it was venting out over top of these people who are trapped inside. So these 5 guys are trapped, and the smoke is venting toward them and up this very steep, like 70-degree wall. So they figured it would be a lot better to vent it the other way, which it was, but we didn't know that, and that's why the smoke had kind of overcome us at that point. I think they still had radio communication. We attempted to lower air packs from the top down to them just because we knew we couldn't get to them. We called in all these other resources, called in West Metro and their confined space team and stuff, but we eventually found out that they were 2,500 feet into the mountainside.
Whoa.
There's no amount of supplied airline in the state to reach them.
To get that far, Jeez.
When we went back in, eventually, a mine rescue team actually came out. So this was a multi-day operation eventually, but a mine rescue team was the first ones to go in there. They have these air purifying respirators, so they can go up to 4 hours, and they went in there to clear the air. We went in and saw kind of there was scaffolding, there was slippery paint, all that stuff in between us and them. So it was literally, there was no way to affect that rescue. The only thing we could have possibly done is, ourselves die. So that call for me, I was in my 20s at that point, and I think I still felt pretty immune to dying, but I think it did seem scary after the fact. It's like, wow, this was not good. This was not a good situation to be in, and it was big time news, as you can imagine, and my wife's watching it on the news and stuff like that. It's one of those where you're like, I'm okay, we're out of there. And maybe not the best choice. So we were discussing kind of how that correlated with the time in my life. So I had been in EMS, ski patrolling, and ambulance for just about 5 years, and just where I was, early 20s, I didn't have a lot of good skills to deal with those traumatic situations, that sort of thing. So drinking and doing dangerous things were kind of my go-to for, self-help, if that's a thing.
Sure.
Obviously not much help, but that's kind of how I dealt with it at the time. So skiing and biking are still some of my pastimes, but that was certainly different. It was, to a point. The following year, I needed 2 knee surgeries, mostly because I just skied so much, not listening to my body and stopping when I needed to, skiing, well over 100 days a year, that sort of thing, of just going from this is a healthy outlet to like, this is not healthy, this is damaging you, and then damaging relationships as well.
Sure.
So that definitely, eventually, looking back on it, I know that was just a super unhealthy time for me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think alcohol and or outdoor activities that give us that adrenaline rush that aren't related to work are super common coping mechanisms within the fire service. And and I think we'll get into this a little bit more further down the road, but what are some of the things you do now to cope? Or are you still hitting the bottle and hitting the slopes pretty hard?
I'm drinking water here, I promise. I actually don't drink anymore. So that needed to stop for me about 2010. So it took me a couple years to figure it out, but I haven't drank since 2010. Which makes me kind of awkward at a big party, but
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
It also was important for me because that relationship was becoming super unhealthy. So I guess to tie it to a call I had more recently, I can remember I was the EMS supervisor here for about 4 years, and on that unit you go on all the cardiac arrests in the city. And one call I can remember, I went on a cardiac arrest and it was really close to my house. The patient was really close to my daughter's age. And it was one of those calls where I just thought about this, it's not optimal. We did everything we could. Patient passed away. Ended up being not a great scene at all. Definitely potentially damaging call, obviously for the family, but also for the responders. And that's something we do the peer support team for now. So at this point, fast forward, many years, and I'm part of the peer support team, have learned these skills of resilience building, that sort of thing. So not drinking, definitely sharing with the crew, sharing with the family, exercising to a reasonable extent. That for me, I've found that some endorphins every day, and endorphins are more, from the cardiovascular fitness. So the backcountry skiing, I climb up the hill, then ski a lap or two down. Go mountain bike. We're not getting crazy and hucking off massive stuff anymore. My body doesn't appreciate that too much, but it does really appreciate just going for a ride.
Casual ride, yeah.
And getting the heart going. And then some of the things with the peer support team, making sure I'm getting good sleep. I'm way better at reacting and responding to those challenging incidents if I'm getting good sleep. So just prioritizing that, not drinking a bunch of coffee, not working 3 jobs like I used to. So my day off, I was a captain at Station 2 also, which is super busy here. I wouldn't work the next day. I would make sure I had time to kind of rest and recuperate. And then some of the modalities that our therapists can offer. So the first time I went to therapy shortly after that first call, that incident I was discussing, which was super helpful and got me closer to where I need to be. But more recently with our therapist, she can talk it out with you, which can be helpful, but she can also do things like EMDR, which is, we don't even have to talk about it. We just think about it, and it helps kind of loosen the grip of that memory. So we still remember it, but it doesn't invoke any kind of anxiety reaction. So it seems to work. I have been by that, the site of that call many, many times since that. And I remember it, but it's not, it doesn't bring about any sort of response. And I can remember shortly after that other call and some other things that compounded at that time, feeling this like intense anxiety reaction back then, and not feeling that is obviously a wonderful thing. Who if anybody has ever felt that, like feeling that chest tightness, all those things, it's not comfortable. Yeah. So this is certainly a much better way to live.
Yeah. And looking at it in the aftermath, I would think you and I both would recommend, using our peer support resources. At the time and in the moment, has it always been easy for you to seek out therapy? Were there barriers to you making that initial appointment? Or was it a hard thing to do and then you just learned to love it?
No, there were certainly barriers, and even not being connected with the fire service, I could see it being even harder for some people now. The fire department we're built on strength, bravado, those sorts of things. It's not going to be your first inclination unless you're really driven to seek that out, I think. But to know that it could potentially be a healthier thing. For me, back in 2007, it took really, honestly, me falling a certain degree where my relationships weren't in good shape, my body wasn't in good shape, Like I said, my mind wasn't in good shape. So it took falling a fairly far ways. I still had a job and that sort of thing. I wasn't in jail.
Yeah.
But for me, it felt really, really low. And that is really what drove me to seek therapy at that point. And I'm sure my wife probably helped instigate some of that. I did have a kind of a mentor back then as well, who was just a neighbor that I'd just chat with. He was one of my few confidants at the time, but he really helped me to see that life is certainly a journey, and most of us are going to have a low at some point. And knowing that I could overcome that, and there were these positive outlets and these ways to kind of change the course was really impactful. He had been through some similar times, and that was really helpful, because I think when you're in that, whether it be depression or anxiety, whatever it might be, it's really hard to see out of. So to have him as kind of a seasoned vet to say, hey, I've been there, can hang with you for a while, and there is a way out. You need to take a couple steps, but you can get there.
Well, that's really cool. I think mentors are underrated.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are mentors and don't even know it. He may not even know that he was such a key piece in your life at that point. Well, cool. You've answered it a little bit. Peer support's been around for a while, but I feel like it's just recently kind of getting some importance placed upon it, if you will, or it's becoming more normalized to utilize peer support. But you've been around peer support for a while now. What initially got you interested in peer support, or what made you join peer support?
So Jason Whitesides, who we've interviewed on the show, was certainly compelling to join, and just wanting to do what he's doing. So again, a mentor, I mean, he's bringing this huge positivity to work every day, and somebody you want to emulate. You want to help people. That's why we signed up for this job, and it's just a new way to do it. So at that point, we started the peer support team here about 8 years ago. I'd been a paramedic for a while, been a flight paramedic, so learned all these advanced skills, learned to RSI people, do all these different things, but those skills aren't brought to bear on every single call. And just this attitude or ability to generally just lend a hand, even on calls, I find that pretty important, for the family members who are still there, even for the patient, just being that resource and kind of just being able to be there for them. So I wanted to learn more about that, and I also wanted to see if what I had been through could help some folks hopefully avoid some of those pitfalls, but if they fall into some of the same traps, at least help be one of those people that knows that they can come out the other end and can kind of help them get there.
Cool. Paying forward what other people did for you. That's
Absolutely.
Really cool. So now we've got a little bit of background, a little bit of insight into who is Jamie Kavanaugh. I'd like to now dive into kind of your day-to-day, how you prepare yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, what of those things you do with your crew, what you do on your own, how you continue to be successful in dealing with a lot of this stuff.
So my day-to-day, I am super fortunate. I have a 7-year-old daughter. She sleeps super well. So I wake up before she does pretty much every day. And to set my tempo, I feel like I could either hop on my phone and see what awful things happened over the night, or I can set a direction. And part of that I do by just kind of a centering prayer, who I want to be today, what I want to bring to bear in the world, and what I hope that other people can help me to do and achieve, as being part of kind of a collective bigger than myself. The next part, we've talked about this, you actually turned me and my family onto it, as a 5-minute journal. So I start with that, a piece of gratitude, something that I'm looking forward to the day, and just kind of an intention, what I hope to accomplish that day. Takes a couple minutes, I write it down. It's been easy and really helpful. The next piece I do is I talked about it before, but meditation. So that's mind training to me. So everybody at the fire department pretty much does some level of physical training. You're doing mind training whether you know it or not. If you're waking up and scrolling on your phone, it's training your mind to be one way. If you're waking up and sitting and in this case, what I do is practice concentrating basically and relaxing. I think it allows me to be more present with the people I'm gonna be with, whether that be my family, my coworkers, patients, that sort of thing. Potentially allows me to act better on a stressful scene. So I've rehearsed how I want to kind of detune my nervous system, how I want to be able to hopefully talk eloquently when a building's burning down, do all those things. And also just deal with stresses that may come, that will come, absolutely. I mean, it's everyone's day. I'm a captain at a fire department. There's going to be stress. So that's a big thing for me. I try to get some exercise every day, try to connect with my family as best I can. So if I can in the morning before I leave, that's great. If not, right now I'm working 10-hour shifts so at the training center. So I try to make sure I'm bringing my best self back to my family as well. But so continuing through my day, showing up for work, kind of the best I can be. So setting my morning that way. So a couple things.
Cool. Yeah, I really like that. One thing you said that I completely agree with is I believe both for your physical health and your mental health, there's no neutral. Mm-hmm. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. And if you're not actively trying to get better, you're probably getting worse. Yeah. And in the world we live in, you have to be really intentional about your mentality or you're just naturally it's going to get worse.
For sure. There's so many distractions. And I think what our country is predicated on is just working a ton and buying a ton of stuff that we then have to take care of and consuming more ads and more everything, really. So it does take a bit to kick some of that out and create some space for I want to live life a little differently, One thing that's a little different about our home, we don't have a television, and we haven't since probably 2003-ish. We had a roommate shortly before that it'd be the best powder day ever, and he'd be like, "No, I'm good. I'm going to play video games all day." And yeah. I think it was even before Netflix, but I'm going to binge whatever show, that sort of thing. And it made us realize that wasn't how we wanted to spend our time. I have a cell phone. I probably spend too much time on it just like anybody else, but that was one piece where we could decide we want to be intentional about this. I do want to read a book. I want to listen to some music. I want to dance with my daughter, whatever that might be. Those things that are usually were more important. And if I still wanted to ride my bike and ski, I'm 44 years old. Most people give that stuff up when they're, in their teens. That's kid stuff, but it's helped fuel me and I really enjoy it, and stay fit. So I wanted to make time for those things. So I had to cut out some other things. So I'm not saying it needs to be TV for everyone, but I think some intentionality around how am I spending my time? Is it doing my, the stuff that's really important to me and fuels me, or is it not?
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really unique. I feel like the TV, like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be the TV, but I feel like a TV has become a central part of what gathers people. I mean, even at the firehouse, our day room where we can relax is all the chairs are facing the TV. How important is it for you to show up for your crew and your family, you'd mentioned previously, with a positive attitude? And how do you stay engaged?
So the positive attitude, that's super important, and it starts in the morning, just who I want to be, how I want to present, and also I feel like that spurs other people to want to be their best selves. I hope there's those mirror neurons they talk about. So if I'm smiling, hopefully you're smiling. If we can impact each other's moods. So if I come in super bummed, had a rough night, getting torn up by a call, whatever it might be, that's going to impact the rest of the crew. It's going to make it harder for them to stay positive and face the challenges of the day. Same thing for the family. I mean, I'm teaching a 7-year-old how to walk through the world, how to interact with the world. And I think when we go out and we interact with people in a positive way, she can learn, wow, like it's almost like a little experiment. She interacts with them positive. She's beautiful. She smiles at them. It lights up the room a little bit versus she's having a rough time, which she does. We all do, not to say we don't, but it's also one of those moments of, yeah, wow, like it's impactful.
So one thing you mentioned in or how you prioritize or deal with keeping yourself mentally healthy is prioritizing sleep. I know especially in this line of work, sleep can be challenging, and then raising a family as well can add some challenge into that. How do you optimize your rest? Do you have any pro tips for getting a good night's sleep?
Pro tips. I've tried a lot of different things, and I look back at pictures of myself when I was working at Station 2, raising young kids. I mean, my eyes are so red and bloodshot. It's really challenging, and I have tried a lot of different things, read a lot of different stuff, so certainly try to have as much regularity as I can. Have a bit of a ritual, just like I do in the morning, have a ritual before I go to bed. So try to turn off the screen, the computer as early as I can, to be honest, just because that stuff will ruminate for me. So if I can, when I was doing certain jobs that may have been 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but some jobs I'd shoot for 8 o'clock at night just to turn off the screen. That's showing that even that light coming into our eyes can trick our brain to think it's day. So that's one thing I certainly do. Try to stop drinking caffeine pretty early, before noon if I can. It's got a 6-hour half-life, so can stick with us for a long time.
Yeah, I'm in trouble. I'm working on a monster right now.
And then just having that little bit of routine, that little bit of wind down. So I usually stretch a bit. Again, do some version of breath work before I go to sleep. So that's just kind of deep breathing. You breathe into your belly, it activates your vagus nerve. People who are standing at the foul line to make a shot, they visualize it going in, take a couple deep breaths into their belly. They don't hyperventilate and, like a football player would, smack themselves in the face a few times, Yeah. And rarely will you see the quarterback do that. I think the person who wants to stay cognizant, like they're trying to be more cool and collected, versus the linemen might be smashing heads together after the play. But for us, often just trying to relax. We might have gotten at Station 2, we might have had 15 calls already, and we might get 8 more in the night. So that ability to relax before you go to sleep and hopefully go back to bed. So not grabbing from my phone, even if I want to in the middle of the night. If I need to, I'll read a book to try to de-stress and kind of get more in that mood. But try to keep the screens out of bed. So
very hard to do these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just like everything else we've talked about, I think the biggest thing from what you're saying is being intentional about it, because I think if you're not, the easy thing is to watch TV till you fall asleep, or to be on your phone till you fall asleep, because it is an option to kind of free your mind of what you're thinking about presently, to kind of go into someone else's world or whatever. But being intentional is key.
Yeah, and I think controlling what we can control and then trying to let go of the rest. So our counselor will talk about these negative sleep thoughts. The one thing, some of these books will tell you how bad it is for us to not sleep. And it's not good for you, there's no doubt. And am I going to survive till tomorrow? Yeah. Am I going to feel a little worse? Am I going to feel groggy? Is it the end of the world? No. So just trying to let go of that. I'm going to have bad nights of sleep. Even now, working this office schedule once every couple weeks, I don't sleep great. It's gotten way better than getting up multiple times a night at Station 2. I got to be honest, but I still have my moments. I've done this stuff for a long time. I'm in my mid 40s now, so I need to wake up to go to the restroom. That wakes you up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And hopefully you fall back asleep. If you don't, not the end of the world.
You have been doing this a long time, and I'd kind of like to talk about that. This job, kind of another hot topic in the fire service right now, is addressing burnout. Mm-hmm. We had mentioned you'd been in the field, whether it's managing an ambulance service, volunteering, doing something in EMS for 10 years before your 10-year career here. Mm-hmm. How do you avoid burnout, or what do you do to address that?
Well, a couple different things. I think engagement is kind of the opposite of burnout to a degree. So getting too engaged, I've seen a lot of folks get super amped on something, it gets shut down, and they're totally over it, that sort of thing. So if I can be engaged, and I try to be engaged in all aspects of the job, that's truly part of the reason I'm in training, fire training now. I could have potentially gone into an EMS training position, but I'm a fire captain. I want to explore all aspects of the job and really learn to do them to the best of my ability. And that was an area where I felt like I had some learning to do. So it's been great to be out there with my coworker, Rick, has 26 years previous experience. He helps me learn and grow. Doing stuff like this, stuff that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
So at different points in my career, I actually managed an ambulance service in my late 20s, and I was going to every meeting, being on every committee, doing all those things, and I was over it pretty quick. Now I'm much more selective. So starting this podcast, coordinating the peer support team, stuff that really makes me excited, fills my cup. I want to keep coming back to do it. Those are the things I'm putting my energy into, because I also want to save a lot of time and space for my family. I still want to go skiing every now and again, still want to ride my bike, those kinds of things. So I don't want to be on every committee anymore. And I feel like somebody who is more passionate for that thing. So the other day I was invited to the clothing committee meeting because I'm involved in the academies right now. And I popped in and I greatly appreciate what those people do, because to them, that's super important. To me, not ultra important.
Yeah.
It's not the thing that makes me excited. So I want to leave that work to somebody who really is excited for it. And also, hopefully I can pursue my passions a little more and what I'm potentially good at, but also growing into and excited about.
It's cool that you're, after even such a long career, you're finding new things to dig into and trying to learn.
Oh man, this career is so varied. So I just became a hazmat tech last fall. There is always something to learn. I'm not a specialist in all areas, and just to remain a specialist at EMS and structural firefighting is a full-time job, let alone adding in these new components. These specialties are really challenging, So there's always something. So I think biting off those reasonable chunks. One other thing I was going to say about that, research in flow. So flow is, people call it getting in the zone or something like that. They say trying something, stretching yourself just enough. So 104% harder, than what you did last time. Just a little bit harder each time is really where we want to operate. If something's super easy for us, it's going to get boring.
Yeah.
If something's super challenging for us, it's too much. We're going to get overwhelmed. So finding that thing that just pushes us out of our comfort zone just a little bit, just enough to keep it interesting, keep it engaging.
So you've been in this career for a long time. I know your wife's an ICU nurse. Mm-hmm. I feel like firefighters typically look at the world a little differently than your average Joe. And having your wife being a nurse is kind of a unique aspect to that too. Do you think both of you being in the healthcare world for so long has led to you viewing the world differently? How do you guys cope with that, or how has it been being surrounded by the healthcare in how has it affected your family and your marriage?
I think it's affected us a few different ways. It affects our marriage, I think, mostly positively. It's so cool to be able to share those experiences. Oftentimes, I'll take care of a patient, bring them to the hospital, and my wife will take care of that patient. Continuity of care. Understanding each other's jobs has been useful. So we probably do share more about our jobs than some couples do, but for us, it's a point of connection. Some of the challenge has certainly been that we have a young daughter. We only have one kid. We don't have a spare or anything like that. So we are probably more helicopter parents than we should be, because we have seen the tragedy that can beset folks, especially when they're not careful. She works in neurotrauma ICU, so you're darn sure my daughter's wearing a helmet when she goes and rides her bike and goes skiing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that has impacted us for sure, and not always positively. Another cool point, though, is I feel like it gives us a lot of perspective. So we both go to work and we see rough things. We see a lot of rough things, and just that perspective of, man, are we blessed on the daily? It's a cool place to start from. We have this, what we're able to give to the world, these skills, this knowledge, these cool jobs, great family, and at this point, we're not going through what those people are going through. We understand that at some point in our lives, we probably will have to go through challenges again. We've been through some challenges together, as I talked about earlier, and we probably will again. And right now, things are really good, and it feels like such a blessing to be able to share our knowledge and skills with people.
From the outside looking in, I've been blessed to get to know you and Leah a little more this year, helping out with Charlie. But from the outside looking in, it seems like you guys have a great relationship. Are there things you guys do together or work on together as a couple that have helped you guys be successful?
There are definitely things we do together. It's more challenging in my current job, actually, since I'm gone during the day. She's only worked 1 day a week since we had our daughter. And it's really been amazing. Again, it was one of those things we decided we're going to be on the spend less, make less program. I got promoted about the same time, which was awesome. But I also drive a 96 Ford, Creeper van. So those trade-offs, but to us, that's worth it to be able to go ride our bikes together, do those different things. So I don't have to be compelled to work the overtime. She doesn't have to work full time anymore, where we're just, ships passing in the night, handing off our daughter in between, that sort of thing. We can have that time. We ski together, we bike together. Those were things that certainly initially brought us together. I think it's easy to see a moment in time and to say that our relationship is great. We have family close by, all these different things, and it can seem sometimes unobtainable to folks. And I'm certainly living proof that it wasn't always easy. It won't always be easy for anybody. That same era that I was talking about after that call, my wife and I met in 2001 and we're together for most of that time. We separated for a little while. About 2008-ish, I was drinking too much and not being respectful to our relationship at all. And she hung in there and helped me to develop into the husband and father that I could be. So I feel really lucky to have a kid kind of later in life too, so I can be a better dad, really. And that she, for some reason, kept me around, because it did lead to a lot of growth for me. Because if she had kicked me to the curb, which would have been completely reasonable, those opportunities for growth may not have been there, or the thing compelling me to grow wouldn't have been as strong at that time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think everybody struggles to some extent, but not everyone always knows. Yeah. And along those lines, I'd like to talk about, we've talked about what you do to be successful at work, kind of some things that you have found, some things that people can glean from, hopefully, to be successful at work. But I want to know what you struggle with at work, maybe some low moments that you've learned from, or what you continue to struggle with and how you are kind of working through it.
Man, plenty of low moments. I mean, it's a hard job, it really is. It was challenging to move jobs, to start fresh. I think going through the fire academy when I was in my 30s, had already had a bit of a career. I was a good flight medic. This was a better job, and it was another opportunity to learn a new thing, to potentially do a job that was a better fit, a better career, all those things. But it was challenging for a while, for sure. When you're going through a fire academy, I think everybody wonders, is this the right thing every single day? It's hard, it's really hard. And having some injuries, like I talked about, those knee injuries in 2008. So it was 5 years later, so it was mostly healed, but still running 5 miles, lifting weights, doing all the stuff we do was challenging for sure. Yeah. And it certainly made me question, was this the right move? rewind, being the director of that EMS program at the time, that was not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be out in the streets. I wanted to be doing the thing, and I really didn't have a lot of patience at that point. So the meditation and that sort of thing, it was much needed. Believe me.
Yeah.
My younger self did not have a lot of patience, not able to sit through meetings very well, that sort of thing. So there was a lot of growth that needed to happen, definitely. I can think of another low moment at work when I was not getting along well with a coworker. I think you know that the captain engineer relationship is hopefully the foundation for your crew. And I had a low moment when I wasn't getting along well with my engineer. We had actually a blow up in front of the crew, mostly me, actually, because I'm not always the best at correcting things as I go. In hindsight, I know this is something for me to work on, just knowing that I need to address issues more frequently as they come up. We had a disagreement that had been going on for way too long, and I freaked out on him in front of the crew. Not my finest moment, not to the least, but it at least created a jumping off point for us where we could start to mend that relationship. We both knew it needed to be better, and we were able to come back together and work really a lot better together and become super close, frankly, which was pretty cool, you know? I think some of those challenges and stressors, and I can even think of my own life, they still exist sometimes, and they can seem like we just can't overcome them. But I think being open-minded, continuing that communication, willing to learn from the other person, that really taught me that it was possible. It took a lot of work, but it was possible, and we grew closer, frankly, than I am with most people on the department. So it was really a cool resolution in the long run.
Yeah, that is cool. Ideally, like you said, that it doesn't happen in front of the crew,
right.
But those tough conversations do need to happen. I know everyone right now in the department's not on their dream crew. There are probably some that are, and probably more that aren't. And it's hard to have those conversations. So appreciate you sharing that. It's cool that it all worked out. And it usually always does work out in the end after you air the dirty laundry a little bit or get it out there. I want to talk a little bit about the future. And I guess first off, I think everyone in this job has a purpose or a reason they're here. Do you have a purpose that you focus on, or a mission, vision, values, etc.? And what are those, or what is your personal mission statement of Jamie Kavanaugh?
I don't know that it's that well articulated, but I certainly try at this point in my career to be here for the people that report to me. It's really not about me collecting more certs or doing more things. I had a cool experience just a couple days ago. The guy that reports directly to me, Rick, was the Employee of the Year. And that felt really gratifying and fulfilling, because that should be my job right now, is to give him the tools, the space, the support, all those things to really flourish at his job. So that was cool. I've been Employee of the Year before, and this one actually felt way better. Way cooler for him to get it, Yeah, it was a lot cooler. So that's kind of where it's at for me right now.
Cool. I like that. What goals do you have for the next chunk of your career? I'm not sure how much you got left, but let's say for the next kind of a 5-year goal and a 10-year goal, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I've got a 7-year-old, so I'm going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
Got to keep working.
Get her through college.
And I enjoy my job. I found it super varied. And I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm not a super huge 5 or 10-year goal person. I've thought about the different progressions. I look forward to getting back on shift. That's my immediate goal. I like the schedule. I like to work really hard and then have that separation from work for 4 days. It's amazing. I love to hand off to-do list or whatever it might be at the station to somebody else. Somebody else takes over. It's amazing because right now, and a lot of props to our chiefs and people in administration because they never hand off their to-do list. And that can be challenging. It gets really long. And
still there when you get back on
Monday.
It's
still there when you get back. No one else is picking away at it, which is challenging. So I've thought about it. And right now, honestly, I don't know what direction I'll go. Definitely hope to keep doing my best every day and see what opportunities open up. That's kind of how I've done it thus far, and it's worked out pretty good.
Cool. That's a fair answer. I'll accept it. Cool. Well, we're getting to the end of the podcast here, getting ready to wrap up. All right. First of all, a role model or a mentor of yours.
Role model, growing up in Baltimore, playing middle infield, Cal Ripken. Showed up for work every day, just brought it for his team, won some World Series. That was like the guy,
Okay, Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
A book you're reading or a book you'd recommend.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to throw the mentor out there too.
Oh, yeah.
Here, Chief Williams, when I started, he was the battalion chief I worked under when I was the medic one, the SAM officer. He, for me, really showed up for his people too. He would come out, I'd have these standbys at athletic events or something like that. It was kind of a responsibility, and he didn't feel like it was a good situation for somebody to be put in to be the only provider there. So he would actually show up. Even though he's super duper busy, he'd go around every station. Some people would think, he doesn't need to come around every single shift. But for him, it was just important to be available for his folks and to put that as his highest priority, which I always thought was cool because I know the battalion chief job is super busy. And you could probably lock yourself in the office for 12 hours a day and maybe get most things done. But he chose to really extend himself. So cool. That's a mentor for me. Books. Got a couple with me, man. There's so many that come to mind, but I was going to zero in on this this meditation mind training thing. So one is kind of a cult favorite. It's called All Waves Are Water. I've got it with me. It's a surfing book, and I went to Costa Rica in college, and I've tried to go back as much as I can. It's one of those sports that I'm really bad at, but I really love it. And this guy just fuses this lifestyle of he's going to be an outdoor athlete still, even later in his life, and also find these areas of spirituality, religion, all these different things that are impactful for him, and help him be the person that he wants to be, to show up in the world the way he wants to. So the other one that's I feel like is more practical is this guy named Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese monk that wrote this book, Peace is Every Step. So the idea there is that we're not going to accomplish grand things if we're not in the right place. So if I'm going at it angry and pissed or something like that, I'm not going to solve any societal issues. I'm not going to have understanding for the other people, the other side of the argument. That kind of helps me with politics and stuff like that. That's just so, our country's so divided and, I don't know, fighting each other and stuff like that. So that idea that, walking peacefully every step is what we can hope for, and just some kind of practical ideas about it. Kind of cool book.
Peace is Every Step, and what was the other one?
It's called All Waves Are Water.
All Waves Are Water. All right. I might check that one out.
Yeah.
I've kind of been
a little more of an adventure.
Yeah, and I've been on a surfing kick. I don't currently surf, but I know a lot of people use that for their mental health. It's very engaging in the mind.
Oh, yeah.
You forget about all the other stuff that's going on, and I feel like it's kind of like golf where you can do it as a young buck and you can do it as an old man.
Yeah.
Pretty low impact for the most part. So
Yeah. No, I like that point too, and that's drawn me to skiing and biking. Is just the focus that requires, like skiing through trees, biking down technical terrain. Like that was my inroad to think like maybe I could focus in other areas of my life, and my mind wouldn't have to be, I'm talking to Bryson, but my mind's out here thinking about what I got to do next, that sort of thing. My list of stuff to do, or the frustration I have over here, the, tension I have over here, just those pieces of that shows us that we can be concentrated, and it feels amazing when we are. So for me, that mind training bit is, can I bring that to the more mundane aspects of my life, like washing the dishes or something like that, or having a conversation? It doesn't have to just be for when I get to go surfing in Costa Rica. That's going to be once every 5 years, but I'm going to wash the dishes more frequently, hopefully.
Cool. I like that. A podcast you're listening to.
Podcast, one that was really influential for me was called On Being, and it introduced me to kind of all these different topics that I've dived more deeply into. So this woman, Krista Tippett, interviews scientists, healthcare providers, spiritual leaders, all these different folks in this platform of what are you doing? How's it making society better? Just kind of it's really interesting and really exposed me to a lot of different areas of thought that I would then kind of chase down, listen to a book, something like that.
My next one is a fun or unique way to work out.
Backcountry skiing, for people that don't know what that is. It's the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah.
So basically putting some gluey, they're called skins, gluey things on the bottom of your skis, unhooking the back of your ski. You have this lightweight equipment that allows you to walk into the mountains, up the hills. You're away from the crowds. Might not see another single person. The snow is way better. Get back out there. It's just super peaceful. Get a great exercise, and then get to rip down a field of powder. I mean, it's amazing.
Sounds pretty amazing. If you're into skiing, it probably sounds terrifying if you're not into skiing. It sounds pretty cool. One piece of advice. If you only had one piece to give, what would you say to somebody looking for advice?
Take care of each other. It's not all about you.
Okay. Short and sweet. Take care of each other. Well, those are the 5 I had, and I think we're out of time. So, Jamie, I appreciate you letting me host 1, and for 2, being willing to be on the podcast.
Absolutely.
It was awesome to chat with you, as always.
Thanks, Bryce. Yeah, appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on Going Interior. I hope the ideas shared here help you to adapt to the challenges of your life and career. Please share and like this episode if you find it useful. It's been produced by Dirk Klingman and Ellis Thompson of the Grand Junction Fire Department. With special thanks to 970 West Studio for sharing their space, equipment, and expertise. Take care, and please join us again next week.